The Kremlin's grand halls were silent, the hum of bustling officials drowned out by the sudden weight of a singular moment. When Ibrahim Traoré, Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, stepped into the heart of Russia's power, even Putin couldn't predict the seismic shift that would follow. "You think you've seen strength?" Traoré's voice cut through the room like a blade, his gaze unwavering. "Wait until you meet the strength of the people who have nothing left to lose." Introduction. When set up, it was a cold, unforgiving morning in Moscow. The gray sky loomed like a blanket of oppressive silence over the city, as if even the weather knew something extraordinary was about to unfold. The Kremlin's heavy doors creaked open, and a man emerged, small in stature but with a presence that could not be ignored. Ibrahim Traoré, a leader from the heart of Africa, stood at the threshold, the scent of old stone and iron filling the air. His every step was deliberate, as though he had come not only to meet the Russian president but to confront the very foundations of global power. Dressed in a suit that could hardly conceal his humble origins, Traoré's eyes were sharp with purpose. He wasn't the type to wear the world's weight like an ornament. No, he was the type to challenge it. The journalists, the bodyguards, even the aides shuffling papers in the corners, all looked to him with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Putin's office, a marble monument to Russian power, felt colder than it had ever been. Yet as the two men met across the polished desk, it was clear that the temperature had nothing to do with the weather. Putin's lips curled into a tight smile, but his eyes betrayed him. They weren't as confident as they once had been. Traoré stood tall, unshaken by the immense walls of authority around him. "Mr. Traoré," Putin began, his voice smooth, "it's an honor to welcome you. What brings the leader of Burkina Faso to Russia?" A slight pause filled the space between them. Traoré leaned forward, locking eyes with the man who had shaped much of the world's geopolitical landscape. "You do not understand, President Putin," Traoré replied, his voice calm but resolute. "What it means to have everything stripped away and still stand. I have come not to beg for aid, but to demand respect. Respect for the lives we, the forgotten, have fought to protect. You see, your strength is a lie. The true power lies in what we have been forced to endure, what we have learned when everything else is taken." The silence that followed was thick with the weight of Traoré's words. Putin's expression remained unchanged, but the air around them seemed to tighten. Conflict introduced. What happened next was almost imperceptible, a faint shiver in the room, the subtle shift of power. Putin's facade remained intact, but there was something unsettling about Traoré's presence. It wasn't anger that emanated from him, it was something far more dangerous, the unshakable belief that one could stand in the face of the world's cruelties and still demand justice. And Traoré was demanding something big. "Russia," Traoré continued, his voice now rising with quiet intensity, "has seen its own share of pain. But while you build monuments of power, we in Africa are building a foundation of resilience. Do you not see? The balance of power is shifting, and you are standing in the way of something far greater than you can comprehend." Putin's eyes narrowed, his knuckles white as they clenched against the table. He had never met a man like this before, someone who refused to be intimidated by his power, someone who seemed to carry the weight of the world's hope in his very bones. "I've built this country on strength," Putin growled, his voice dipping into a darker register. "You speak of a foundation, but it's built on the blood of others." Traoré did not flinch. "Then perhaps it's time you learned what it means to build on a foundation of hope. You would know nothing of that." Midpoint. Revelation or twist. Just as the tension reached its breaking point, a shocking revelation tore through the air. The doors to the Kremlin swung open, and an aide hurriedly entered carrying a sealed envelope. Without speaking, the aide handed it to Putin, who tore it open with trembling hands. His face, once stern and composed, now shifted into something that could only be described as concern. "Sir, this is a message from within our own ranks," the aide stammered. "It appears there is an uprising in Africa." led by none other than your allies. Putin's jaw clenched. He had always been in control, his alliances strong and strategically placed. But now, it seemed even the pillars of his empire were crumbling under the weight of what he had ignored. His gaze flicked back to Traoré, who remained unfazed, his eyes dark with unspoken knowledge. "You think I don't know?" Traoré whispered, almost to himself, as if the information was just a footnote in a much larger narrative. "You've manipulated the world for too long. The consequences are coming home." Climax, emotional breakthrough. As the walls of the Kremlin seemed to close in around them, something shifted in Traoré. He stood, not as a leader of a small African country, but as the voice of countless oppressed souls, the cry of a continent that had long been ignored. His next words pierced the thick tension like a sharp blade. "Your empire," he began, his voice quieter but full of an undeniable authority, "is built on fear, but fear is a cage. I have known that cage. I have been inside it, and I have broken free." Putin stared at him, eyes wide. For the first time, the president of Russia was unsure of himself. A bead of sweat formed at his brow, not from physical exertion, but from something much deeper: recognition. Recognition that Traoré wasn't just speaking to him, he was speaking to the world. "You speak of freedom." Putin's voice trembled. "Do you think you can change the world with words?" Traoré's smile was soft, knowing. "I'm not here to change the world with words. I am here to change it with the truth. You are not the only one who controls the fate of nations, and you will learn that truth one way or another: resolution and quiet closure." The confrontation seemed to hang in the air like the stillness before a storm. But then, as if by some silent, unseen cue, the moment passed. Putin stood in silence, his expression unreadable. Traoré turned to leave, not with the arrogance of a conqueror, but with the quiet dignity of someone who had said all that needed to be said. As the doors to the Kremlin closed behind him, the weight of history seemed to shift. Putin remained standing at the table, a man who had once believed he could manipulate the world, now standing in the echo of his own uncertain future. Call to action. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.